I'm an addict. My name is Skip.
Hi, Skip.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the relationship workshop. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. If there's anyone here representing the media agency, please contact Ray E. Our unity statement. The members of North Central Indiana area of Narcotics Anonymous welcome you to the second annual We Grow With Love convention. We would like to thank you for joining us in this celebration of recovery. We are deeply grateful to Narcotics Anonymous and find great joy in being able to express our gratitude here with you, our family. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are certain that when we come together and share our lives and our love with each other, a miracle happens. Our recovery takes hard work, courage, and commitment. Those are the things that carry us through as we seek the spiritual growth that comes from working the 12 steps. Never alone, we do this together and for each other, knowing that we need each other, because more than anything else, we grow with love. The preface to the basic text begins, the full fruit of the labor of love lives in its harvest, and that always comes in its right season. For us, our season has come. May I please have someone read Why Are We Here?
I'm Julie, I'm an addict.
Hi, Julie.
Why are we here? Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide. But addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks for sharing. Again, I'm an addict. My name is Skip.
Hi, Skip.
I'd like to welcome Jennifer here. She's going to share with us. She has 6 years in recovery and from the Michigan area, and I'm sure she has a message to share. Can we please give a small hand?
Well, my name's Jenny. I'm an addict.
Hi, Jenny.
Well, when I was first approached about doing this workshop, well, to be honest, at first I was like, I don't know about this. I'm not really into getting up in front of people and doing this, so it's kind of nice I get to sit and be on the same level here. But when I thought about relationships, there's many relationships in my life, and they're all very important. Relationships with my higher power, relationships with my friends, my husband, family. But what came to me and what kept coming to my mind was I was focusing on my relationship with myself that has changed since I've come in recovery. I thought back to when I first came in, and as someone around here says, I didn't have a clue, about who I was. I didn't like myself. I'm worthless, I'm this and that, I'm no good, very low self-esteem. I couldn't see any good qualities in me other than when my ego was flared, but deep down inside, I was really empty. I didn't trust myself, which was probably a very wise thing because, the things I did, the things I was doing, the things I was saying, the way I was acting, it was like I couldn't trust myself to take care of myself, and I wasn't. I was proving to myself again and again, that my judgment was impaired. I wasn't making correct decisions for myself. So I had, a lack of trust in what I thought was right for me. I didn't respect myself. That kind of ties in with the not liking myself, but some of the things I did when I was out using, some of the things I said, I didn't have a lot of respect for who I was, and I didn't demand that respect from other people. You know, if I don't respect myself, how can I say you're supposed to respect me too? So I put up with a lot of things that I don't put up with today, that I don't need to put up with. Also, my self-confidence, there was hardly any. You know, I believed what other people said. You know, I had my own ideas, I had my own thoughts. I thought, well, theirs must be better, you know, they must be right. Or I'd let people convince me, you know, that their way was right, or manipulate me into what their way of thinking. You know, it's like I really discredited, you know, my own beliefs. And it's been a process of coming to terms, you know, what are my beliefs, you know, who am I, figuring that out. And like any of the other relationships I've had in my life, it's just taken a lot of hard work, you know, a lot of time figuring that out. I figured that out partly through the other relationships I've had in my life, you know, through my friendships, my marriage, my higher power. You know, I get to see little bits and pieces of who I am, you know, through the way I act with them, the way I, you know, feel around them, the things I do, feelings I get when I pray or when I talk. You know, I get little bits and pieces of who I am. And today, as far as all those things, you know, when I came in, they're still a part of me, you know, and they may always still be a part of me, but they've changed a lot. They've changed a lot. The level where I am with that has changed. You know, as far as liking myself, today I like myself, and all these things I say are most of the time, you know, because when I say they're still a part of me, there's still times I don't like myself, don't trust myself, you know. But today I like myself for the most part, you know, and I'm learning to accept the parts about me I'm not real happy with. You know, I'm learning to accept, well, okay, that's who I am now, but I don't have to stay that way. You know, I can change that. Trusting myself. I trust myself more. I still use the fellowship of my friends to check that out, you know, because my judgment can still really get off track. So I still like to check that out with, you know, my friends and family and the program and my higher power. You know, I use the other relationships to check on me. As far as respect, I respect myself a lot more today. You know, and that's come from, for me, you probably hear me talk a lot about action and things I do, and that's where a lot of things come, for me, a lot of the program is. You know, I don't do a lot of things today for me to disrespect myself. You know, I'm not out there using, for one, you know, so that gives me some respect. You know, I try to be honest. I try to work the program, you know, and when I do work the program and do those things, it feels good inside. You know, it feels good inside, and I know I'm doing something right, and that helps build my respect for myself. You know, like I said, I do expect that of other people today, and I usually let them know if something they say bothers me, you know, or things, you know, and it's good to do that with some people and others. And I'm working on that. That goes along with the self-confidence. You know, I'm learning that if I'm feeling what's going on with me, I have the right to say that. Where I'm at. You know, because back when I came in, I expected everyone to be mind readers and know they hurt my feelings or know they did something to bother me, and I have to remind myself that people aren't mind readers. You know, I need to let people know that that's not okay. You know, I don't like that. You know, I'm not going to be around that. You know, I'm not going to be a part of that. It's just been a process. One thing I learned when I was in college, of all places, it just stuck with me. Learned something in college. Can you believe that? That was program related, and I bet they didn't even know it. It was this teacher, and it was a philosophy class, and he was talking about how everything, we're all human, and everything let's explain this. We're not just one thing or the other. You know, just, just selfish or just caring or just, you know, so on and so on. It's like I've learned today that I can be caring and I can be selfish. You know, I'm both. It's just where I'm at that time with that. You know, what level I'm on with that. You know, I can be lazy and I can work a lot and be productive. You know, both of that is within me. You know, it's just learning to put more emphasis on the part I want to be. You know, and that at that certain time it may not be I want to be more productive. I want to be more lazy, you know. But I have the potential to go either way with that. You know, and most of the time I'm trying to strive for the recovery part, which is, you know, being more caring, more generous, you know, etc. But, you know, to be honest, I don't always feel that way. I don't always go that way. But self-respect and confidence and all that other stuff builds on working the program, you know, which to me is action. You know, sitting in the meetings for me is great. I've learned so much from listening to people and sharing what's going on with me. And sharing is action. You know, getting up here is action. But so much more from not doing the old things I used to do, not the same behaviors, the same patterns, the same ways of living. Had a thought and it left. That really struck me though when you said that, you know, that whole thing. I don't have to be perfect. You know, that's what it's about. You know, I have to be perfect. I have to do everything right. And it's like, you know, it's a process of learning. Mistakes. You know, before I used to made a mistake. Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, how'd you do this and this and this? And I learned to stop that. You know, because I believe in the power of the messages we send ourselves. You know, and a lot of negative messages I would send myself on that, you know. And so one of the big things for me was when I made a mistake. I told myself I made a mistake. You know, you made a mistake over and over. You made a mistake. You're not stupid. You made a mistake. You're human. You know, it made a big difference in my recovery. Judge me, even though I'm guilty of doing those things. People that are willing to accept me as I am, you know. I'm not really sure what else to say, except that I know I've come a long way, you know, from when I walked in that door, but I know I still have a long way to go. You know, all the time I find out new character defects I wasn't aware of before. You know, and it's I try to look at that today as a chance to grow, something to work on, and be patient with it. You know, it just takes time. Recovery takes time, and working on myself takes time. And I was at a speaker once. I only had probably a year or two in, and he was up there, probably about a year, and he was up there saying, I love myself today and this and this and that. And I was just like, you do? How do you love yourself? I was just so enthralled, and I wanted to go ask him, but at that time my self-confidence and all that stuff wasn't there, so I didn't. You know, I figured it out for me, and it may be different for other people. But for me, learning to like, and yes, occasionally even love myself today, for me it was just starting to do things to show myself I was worthwhile. You know, come to the meetings, helping people out, you know, not abusing my body with the drugs or relationships or whatever, you know, just taking care of myself. I learned that, well, yeah, I'm worth that, you know, and it's been, like I said, I keep saying a process and time. And with that, into our next speaker, who is a very dear friend of mine. Short but sweet, folks. Very dear friend of mine who I think works a really good program. That's Anita.
Hi, my name's Anita and I'm an addict.
Hey, Anita.
And a lot like Jenny, I didn't know that I needed to have a relationship with myself, because I thought that the only relationship that mattered was a relationship with a significant other. I thought that was, you know, all I had to have and I'd be all right. And, you know, I sure didn't know what that was coming into the program. You know, having been raised in a dysfunctional family, and I just didn't know. So I had a lot to learn, not only how not to use, but, you know, how to do all these things. You know, today I have a lot of relationships. You know, friends, family. And I guess today, where I'm at today, probably the most important one after my higher power was the relationship that I was able to get with my parents after I got into recovery. Because I was, quote, the black sheep of the family, you know, and I had a hero sister that everybody, you know, looked up to, and that was just a hard act to follow, you know. So when I got into recovery and was able to talk to my parents and you know, establish a relationship there, and that was really, it was really special. And I'm real grateful for that today, because my father died a year ago, and you know, we had some good years. So I'm real grateful to the program for that. You know, I have a lot of friends today that are really, really important to me, and I never would have had that without this program. And I didn't know how to be a friend when I was using it, when I was growing up. It was, you know, I always thought I had to have one friend or maybe two, and that was it, and I couldn't expand myself anymore. And I had to be whatever that person wanted me to be. You know, I was like that in friendships, I was like that in my relationships. You know, I was in a relationship with this man who used to tell me how to dress, how to wear my hair, and I did it, you know, I did it all. And so when I got into a relationship, you know, I was what he wanted me to be, because I didn't know who Anita was. And I got into recovery, and it was after I got into recovery that I got a divorce. And that was a real kick in the ass. You know, it was like, no, this can't be happening. We're in recovery, you know. So I was really shocked. And we split up a couple times. And the second time we split up, we did end up getting a divorce. And I learned a lot about myself during that time. I don't think we ever really ended the relationship, even though we were divorced. But it gave us some time for ourselves, some time that we desperately needed, because neither one of us had had that, you know, before we got married or before we got into recovery. And it was hard. You know, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because I didn't know who I was. I didn't think that I could be by myself. You know, it was like Jenny said, you know, I was stupid. You know, I didn't know anything. And I had 2 kids, and I'm going, what do I do? You know, and I went to the fellowship. And there was probably a couple people at that time who probably got so sick of hearing me cry and complain, and but it was a growing process, you know, and those normally do hurt. But I think the one thing that I learned was that I need to be myself, not who somebody else wants me to be. And little by little, I learned who that was. And I think at that time too was when my relationship with my parents really grew a lot, because they were telling me, you know, they were behind me and they were supporting me, and not supporting me financially, but, you know, emotionally, and that was really neat, you know, because I had never had that growing up. And, you know, here I had my parents going, you know, you're doing a good job. And it was like, oh, wow. You know, I was not used to hearing that from my parents. You know, those were words that my sister heard, not me. And, you know, Chuck and I went through a lot of stuff during that time, too. And about, well, over 2 years ago, he and I got back together. And, it's been interesting. You know, Chuck and I never had a normal relationship to begin with, so I don't know why I thought it was going to be normal after we got into recovery and after we got divorced and back together. But I think Chuck and I are 2 special people, and that God has some plan for us or something, or else we wouldn't be together. As a result of that, of our divorce and stuff, I made some other special relationships in my life that I didn't think would happen with some women that Chuck used to date while we were separated. That was not who Anita was. In my using days, I wouldn't have talked to those people. I wouldn't have looked at those people. And, this fellowship brought us together. And I knew I had to do it in my time. I can remember this one lady, he kept saying, you really need to meet her, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that so that you guys can get together. And without my knowing it, she was telling him the same thing that I was telling him, and that was, don't push it. Let it just happen, and when it's supposed to happen, it will. So I got to know her, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And then there was this other woman, and that one was a little bit easier because I grew up with her. And I said, okay, I can be nice to these people, because see, my sickness, my disease, always blamed everybody else, and I sure didn't want to blame Chuck, because then that meant that there was something that we needed to work on there, some more things that we needed to work on, and I said, oh shit, we got enough of those, And then probably the most special one was the last relationship that he was in with this woman. And, again, it was, just let it go. I can, in my time I'll do this, but I need to do it in my time. And so I slowly started talking to her little by little. And now, we talk, we have a real special relationship. I think that has to do with the fact that, she's a special lady. But I'll never forget, we were at a dance, I think was the first time that her and I were talking. And I went home that night, and Chuck said, oh, well, I saw you talking. And I said, yeah. And I kind of shared with him, the conversation. And he just looked at me, and he was shaking his head. And he said, you guys are just something else. And that's a lot of growth for me, like I said, because I was very a get-even person. I'll get you, watch, and because of my relationship with my higher power, I don't have to do that today. And my higher power, that's a neat thing too, because when I grew up, it was a punishing God type thing, and if I did anything wrong, he was going to punish me and I was going to go to hell, or he was going to strike me with lightning, or something bad was going to happen. And I can joke with my higher power today. I can yell at my higher power today. I talk to him on the way to work. I talk to him at night, and I know that he's there all the time. Not just when I think I need him, but all the time. And again, a lot of things happened with my dad's death, and not a lot of bad things, but a lot of good things. And after about, 2 or 3 weeks, I was able to see the good things that had happened. And I saw God working in my life. And because the day that my dad died, my sponsor called me in the morning and to ask how I was doing. And see, my dad died in a day and a half. It was just real quick. So she called me and she said, how's your dad doing? I'm just thinking about you. I said, well, I think he's doing a little bit better. And she said, well, I think I need to be with you today. And I'm like, no, it's all right. She said, no, I just really think I need to be there. So she came over from Elkhart to South Bend at the hospital. And so my sponsor told me the day my dad died. And I know that was God working in my life. Because, I needed somebody there, and it wasn't my mom, and it wasn't my sister, and he gave me somebody. So that was really, really neat. And, I had a lot of recovery people for me, during that time. And, God just put them there. I had people taking care of my kids, coming up to the house, and, just all kinds of things. And I'm really blessed because I think that I have a very, very special relationship with my kids today. I was determined and, I mean, stubborn and just all kinds of things to make sure that my kids were not going to grow up the way I did. And I think, and I hope and I pray that, you know, it shows today in them. You know, I don't have a lot of the problems that I hear a lot of people have with, you know, their kids, especially a 16-year-old. I can trust my kids. I think I can honestly say that my kids don't lie to me today. You know, and that's stuff that I never did when I was a kid. You know, I lied to my parents all the time. My son was talking to a friend of his at school, and she said, you know, you don't do a whole lot of things without your parents, do you? And he said, no. And she goes, God, that's too bad. You know, and he looked at her and he said, no, not really, if you knew my parents and their friends. You know, our friends are our kids' friends. You know, I take my kids with me everywhere, you know, together or separately. You know, my son's with me this weekend. My daughter's with her dad. But you know, we do things as a family. We do things with the kids, like apart, like this weekend. Every now and then, not as often as I think we should, we do take time for ourselves though too, because that's important. You know, we need that time together to know who we are and to keep that relationship going. I had a friend of mine tell me once that a relationship was like a car and that you needed to maintain it. And then when you quit maintaining it, it fell apart. And I honestly believe that today. I didn't know how to maintain a relationship. I didn't know that I could tell somebody what I needed. You know, and that still is a real hard one for me today, is to tell somebody what I need. But I can do it. It's getting easier, you know, as the years go. I don't have a very good relationship with Chuck's side of the family, but they're all using, and I know today for me that I don't have to put up with using people. You know, that bothers me. So I don't put myself in those situations too often. My friends, you know, I can't say enough about my friends. I know that they're there whenever I need to pick up the phone, whenever I need something, whenever I don't need something, if I just need a hug or if I just need a hi, you know, I know they're there. And that's a good feeling because I never had that growing up. So I'm real fortunate, I'm real blessed today with a lot of people, a lot of different friendships. And I just have to remember that, you know, they're all different. They're not all the same, like I thought they were when I was growing up. And that's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks,
Thanks
Anita.
for sharing. Again, I'm an addict. My name is Skip.
Hi, Skip.
Before we open the floor for sharing, I'd like to remind everyone that you're being taped. If you do not wish to be taped, please let me know so I can let you know to turn the machine off. We're gonna open up this meeting now for sharing. If anybody wants to come up and share, feel free. Or sit and share, feel free.
I'm Julie, I'm an addict.
Hi, Julie.
I really I like what both of you shared. What stuck out to me was quite a bit was the maintenance part of the relationship. It's like you know, like a vehicle, like a car. You gotta take care of it. And I was sitting there thinking, to take care of it, first you have to want to. So that means the willingness has to be there, you know, and in both ways, from both sides. And you know, I recently got engaged. I got engaged over Christmas, and you know, I think sometimes it seems like I've learned more. I've learned more about myself being in this relationship than the 3 years clean prior to. I'm learning about me. I'm learning more of those character defects. Sometimes those stick out more than the good parts, and I always, it's always been my thing to focus on the negative, But there's also a lot of good positive things in this relationship. This person trusts me like I've never been trusted before. And this person allows me to be who I am. And it blows me away. And I think, that old stuff comes in my head, and this is too good to be true, and then I'm reminded of, my self-esteem still needs lots of work. I need a lot of work yet on my relationship with me and allowing myself to grow and to become who I am. And get honest about that. I can say it's neat. I can say what I need most of the time. And it's okay, and I don't have to dress and act, because I did that too, I was in a relationship where whatever this person said that I should wear, how I should look, where I should go, the whole 9 yards, I did that too, and I start thinking that that's going to happen again, and I'm going to lose what little bit of Julie's got of herself today, and then the fear seeps in, and that, when that happens, I have to kind of regroup. I came here, and I'm here by myself, and I got a couple of my kids are home, and they're being taken care of, and this is for me, and I got a lot of encouragement from my significant other. Come here and take this time for me, and that is so new. And I have to trust it. I have to begin to trust it. Yeah, he meant that. He does care, and so do I. It's just, gosh, I really, it really it's hard work. It's not just, I always thought it made me whole. I'd have to have this other person to make me whole, and if I had just that right, perfect other person, I'd be okay, and my life would be just la la la. This is not true. And then the commitment part, then there's that part, and it's just like my recovery and working the steps in the program, incorporated in this also, especially in this, in my life, incorporate these steps in my life. I have to remember that. So I sometimes I want to separate that, and that's probably the worst mistake I can make. But I'm real glad I'm here. I'm glad I came to this workshop, and thanks for letting me share.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Julie.
sharing, Julie.
Hi, my name is Valerie Maddox.
Hi, Valerie.
First I'd like to give thanks to God, my understanding, for getting me here all the way from New Jersey, to the Lights people, fellowship, and everything. I'd like to thank you two ladies for sharing. I could identify with a lot of what you were saying. Relationships. Before I came to the fellowship, the only relationship I ever had was with the dealer. I mean, I really didn't know. I had children, but I had no man, but I had children. I didn't even have a relationship with my children, And now today, being in the fellowship and around people, I'm learning to get with me. I too was one of those women, I beat Betty Crocker, Susie Homemaker, I was all of it just for him, not thinking about me, or just trying to hold on to a relationship, and I'd always get hurt in the end, But since I've been in the program, coming to the rooms, and I'm listening to people share, seeing what happened there, I found out that I had to first get in a relationship with me before I can get with somebody else. And for a long time that was hard because I wanted somebody. I wanted to be with somebody. I want this mate, And it wasn't working out like that. Since I started getting with myself and just not completely leaving them alone, but not just getting into that mess anymore, and start seeing me, I see where I can, be with a person and know what, not just put out, and not get nothing back. now I'm able to say what I need in this and what I need in that. And being in the fellowship also made me see where me and the children could bridge now. Before, I was using, I would just put food there every now and then. I would put clothes if I had to, you know what I mean, and that was it, you know what I mean. Now we're talking, you know what I mean. They're grown women to me, you know what I mean. We talk now, and I like that. We laugh a little bit now, you know, and we can talk about things. Before I couldn't do any of that without the fellowship, without the. And two, another thing, women, y'all say women, I couldn't give them no women. All my friends were men. I was in a relationship with a woman, you know. And I had one friend, and me and her used to get high. And you know, me and her, you know, soon said, but that one girl, me and her used to always get high. And I call her my best friend. So best friend, right? But now I'm able to get with some women, and we could talk. We have women groups back in Jersey. And we talk about good wrenching men and they stuff. And we got our stuff too, but y'all men, y'all know what y'all do. We'll get with these things now. I want a relationship, but then again, I don't really want a relationship. I've been scarred when I was a kid. Anytime I get with a man, it's just like, oh, something's gonna happen, you know what I mean? This ain't gonna last, you know what I mean? I will give everything I got into a relationship and not give anything back, you know what I mean? I'm walking away, licking my wounds, I'm scarred. That was one of the things that kept me out there, getting high, trying to sedate myself. When things went wrong in a relationship, I run somewhere and die, I'm getting high, you know what I mean? I realized that I'll fix you, I'll hurt me, you know what I mean? I'll hurt me, I'll go out there and I'll get blasted and carrying on. After the stuff wear off, I'm still in the same messed up relationship, you know what I mean, feeling shittier, you know, and now I'm taking time, it's like, I'm stopping, I'm smelling the roses, you know what I'm saying? I'm stopping now and checking me out, putting a check on me, and the next relationship I get into, you know what I mean, I hope it be a better one, you know. My girl said, why don't you pray? Well, I'm not praying for no man. I done had it. I didn't ask for it. Oh, Lord, just send me. No, I'm not asking for that. You know what I mean? I'm just taking this recovery thing one day at a time. I ain't worrying about it. If you come along, fine. Oh, let me tell you a little story when I was in recovery. I just got to recovery. They said, no relationship. I said, why? You know, I'm clean. I'm getting me a man in recovery. And yeah. They said, you haven't did it until you did it in recovery. Oh, man. So I almost started racing. Okay, now I'm not smoking any coke no more. I'm not drinking. I'm about 60 days into it. I says, yeah, you know what I mean, lust. You know, until I see a man, okay, you know, and I'm just trying to get that. Well, don't get in the relationship now. I said, why? I'm just gonna give me a little bit and come on back and finish up, you know, follow up on my program. They said you cannot do that. I said, why? You got feelings now. I said, oh, feelings? All I want to do is give me a nut. I'll be back. You know what I mean? That's using. You're not working your program. You are using another person. So what? Men do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? I have not picked up anything. When you be picking up men, I said, well, I need to do this. You know what I'm saying? Well, they said they got something in the program called 3 M's. Meditation, masturbation, and meetings. I said, that ain't enough for me. I need a man, you know? And he said, I said, well, I talked to this guy, and he had about 4 years. I had about 60 days. He said, yeah, you know, I understand what you're talking about. And all he studied talking to me, legs study wheezing open, you know, and I was like, well, I thought we were talking recovery. He said, yeah. He said, I'm just going to help you over the rough parts, you know? So, bam, bam, you know, I was all in, you know what I mean? I was in love. Now I'm clean now, I got a man, you know what I mean? Instead of me thinking it was love, it was nothing but lust on his part. And after about a week of it, you know, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I'm clean, I got a man. I come to a meeting, he's all hugged up with somebody else. Not sitting next to him, I mean leaning. And I'm like, living when I see this guy, I was like, I said, can I speak to you for a minute? Never did a solo in my life. Can I speak to you for a minute? What you want? Whoa. I left the meeting, right? People came, I said, now what you doing? I said, I can't deal with this here. I said, he didn't have the DC to talk to me. He said, well, I told you not to get in a relationship, this was that. And I would not listen to him. But every time I talk to somebody, we talk about relationship, I'm telling you, when they tell you no relationship, you know what I mean, listen to them. Because my feelings were all kicked up there, you know what I mean? I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking, this is part of the plan. Get me a man recovery, get going. And it just backfired like that. I went to 3 meetings that day, trying to get that off me. I had a pocket full of money, and I kept on passing. You know how the devil works? He put a coke ban almost every place I went. I see somebody I know. What's happening? What's happening? And I'm like, nothing. And I get right after, hurry me get to a meeting and sit there, and I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? This man don't want me no more. I can't get nobody, you know. And I fought with that. And so I told my spouse, she said, girl, when you call me? And I said, what am I calling you for? You was gonna just tell me something I didn't want to hear? Yeah, I'm not co-signing your bullshit, she said. You were wrong. So I told you not to do it. You know what I'm saying? You could have talked to me about it, and I got it off you. But after that, all I'm doing now is rolling solo. You know what I mean? This man was trying to talk to me in Jersey before I got here. Why you need to go somewhere? I said, I need to get somewhere and cool off. You know what I'm saying? I need to get somewhere and get back with me. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here to the thing. Now, so too, I want, fellowship with other people, see what the recovery life is in Indiana. But relationships, y'all, I'm working on me. That's as good as I'm gonna get about now, just for the day. And I'll worry about that other thing later. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
My name's Tom. I'm an addict.
Hi,
Hey,
Tom.
I appreciate what you all had to share. One of the things was mentioned that, the relationship with myself. That's something I need to keep in mind. I get pretty busy and, meet new people, get too busy meeting all these other people and, okay, I gotta be this way for that. And all I have to do is be me. That's all I have to do is be me. And let's see, what was mentioned? Work the program. My sponsor keeps telling me about that. Work the program. He keeps telling me about it, just poking fun at me a little bit. How's this step going, Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, I remember that one. And I do have a lot better relationships today. Something else that was mentioned, some relationships I don't have to tolerate. Have very little tolerance for people who use. I can't. I try to keep, spiritual about it, and be patient. I was the same way when I was out there using, and I guess the intolerance I have is, they tell me the things that used to play in my mind, and I nip it in the bud, and I don't want to hear it. I'm not going to agree with you. I don't care. I've used that excuse, I had a little to do with my boss. I told him, well, there's a function coming up Memorial Day weekend, and I'm going to. Well, what if you don't have all your hours in? I said, I don't care. If I don't have my hours in, I'm going. But I don't care. I owe it to myself. I need recovery. I need to meet new people. I need to get around in conventions. Try and get out more. I do the best I can to make meetings. There's been times when I haven't made meetings and it was like, I ain't doing that. I have to hit as many meetings as I can. Sometimes, I get in the old behaviors, I get to seeing the same old faces and, it's like, same old, and I don't know, I guess, kind of off somewhere else and don't care to hear it or what have you, and I'm sure people get the same way with me too. Because I know I've went to meetings and I've shared the same old, and it's like, they're tired of hearing it and they want, okay, you've been talking about this problem for 2 weeks now. Deal with it.
Very cool.
I'm really glad to be here. It's given me a chance to get back with me, get back with God, and to get to know other people in the area. That's all.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for sharing.
Hi, I'm Tammy Maddox.
Hi, Tammy.
I totally relate with you on everything you're saying. And getting here. I'm going through a divorce. And I got to tell you, they were separated. I went to rehab. I came back to him. He made promises. I go to meetings. I do this. And I know I can't blame him, but I feel like that relationship kept me high. You know, really, I want to say it's his fault. You know, I know I can't do that today. You know, yeah, he did buy the stuff. He did give it to me. He didn't, you know, shove it in my mouth and light it. And I could have left him, and I didn't. I finally did now. And it still messes me up, you know, because I talk to him and stuff. I got a daughter, I got a 11-month-old, and he says that he don't miss me and that he don't think about me. Well, this is a secret. How can he not miss me and not think about me? You know, how can that be? And I realized that he's still using it. He ain't feeling nothing because he's medicating it. Or maybe he don't miss me. I don't know. Or maybe he's just saying it to hurt me. Just tore me up, you know. It's a long time. And everywhere I go, I think about him, you know. It's like, I realized that he was my drug. You know, I was obsessed with him, you know. When it was time for him to come home, I'd be looking out the window just like I was geeking or something, you know. Every car I heard, I'd be looking, is it him? Is it him? You know? And it was a little codependency or whatever, you know. And like you were saying about learning about yourself, I'm learning a lot about myself, you know. As soon as he was gone, I learned that I don't like to be alone. That's for sure. I'd put the pillows together, so I could hold the pillows and the blankets, you know. I'd make like a pillow person to hold, you know. So I'm not used to sleeping by myself. It's so hard for me sleeping by myself. And you know, every time I look at my daughter, you know, I think about, you know, seeing her in the fire. It tears me up. So I jumped in a relationship real quick. This lasted 2 months, and this guy, he's telling me he loved me and all this other shit. And I got drunk and he left me. One of my friends got killed. I couldn't handle it. And when he got drunk, I turned to him and he dumped me. I was like, man, I went to him for support, and he told me, oh, pretty much, you know. He didn't say it like that, but you know, that tore me up too. I'm like, man, I thought this guy would support me and help me out. He just told me to take a hike, you know. So that fucked me up. But I came back, you know, I said, fuck it, you know. You know, my friend's dead and I can't do nothing about it, you know. Drinking ain't gonna help it none, you know. And my like you were saying about relationships with women, man, I feel like if I tell a woman something, she's gonna turn around and throw it back at me. As soon as we get in an argument, she's gonna be, well, at least I didn't do this, you know. Well, you did this, you know. So I'm kinda all my friends are men. I don't trust women very much. Probably goes back to my relationship with my mom. You know, my mom was always drunk. You know, she'd be drunk, go to sleep. Could never talk to her, you know. You know, and everything was always my fault. You know, my mom always blamed me for everything. You know, my dad always blamed me for everything. I was like scapegoated, you know. You know, can't shit on the floor, it's my fault. You know, anything, man. And I realized I don't have a relationship with myself. It's what it is, you know. I was always doing the Susie Homemaker thing, you know. When he come home, his clothes were laid out. By the time he stepped out of the shower, his dinner was on the table every day. House be spotless, you know. You know, he never washed no dishes, washed no clothes, nothing. He never had to do nothing. He wouldn't even pick his clothes up, you know. He wouldn't even take his wallet and stuff out of the clothes, you know. I had to do all that too. Man, he had some nasty clothes.
For real. Yeah. I don't know, but I think today it's just that I need a relationship with my higher power. You know, the only time I had a relationship with my higher power is when I was in jail, or when I wanted another hit. Oh God, just let me get another bag. You know, I'd be praying for bags. You know, don't let me get busted, stuff like that. You know. Now I say just don't let me get high today. You know, because I did that. I ain't never gonna get high. That didn't work. You know, everybody told me you just gotta worry about today. Just worry about today. And I didn't understand that, but now I do. You know, now that I messed up, I do. You know, it's just today I'm not gonna get high. You know. I'm kind of scared of relationships now. You know, because I know that everyone I've ever been in has caused pain. And I think that even if it's healthy, there's some pain in it. You know, I've had enough pain for a while. A while. I don't want that pain. I'm really glad to be out here.
In the beginning, I know a guy told me, he said, if it was below zero outside, and you had $100, and you walk by a coat store, and you got your girl with you, and both of y'all cold, you gonna buy her a coat? And that made me think, I'm forget about me and buy her a coat, you know? So today, I have to really take a real good look at me, because without knowing me, I can't even be in a relationship with someone else, So I have to start to work on me, and the best way I know is to do steps in Narcotics Anonymous. That's the simplest and the best way that I know, and that's practicing the principles in my affairs, and if it's with my mother, I don't have any kids, I practice being a parent, but it's all a facade, and I come to find out through the steps that I just don't even want to be a parent. I'm being honest, so I try to date women that don't, I'm not raising kids, that keep it real simple for me, and so that's why I says, I don't want to think about self-centeredness or whatever, but I want to live and I want to live good, because I don't live that bad like all of those bull, I'm been through that, I got another chance, have a better way to live, and it's true, there's a better way to live. God told me I got a choice. Yeah. About that choice, I can express it in a whole lot of different ways, and there's more to be revealed in every area, and by being revealed in every area, I'm getting a chance to truly live today, but then I was a bunch of people talking about how to live, and that's just God working in my life. I had to develop a relationship with a God of my own understanding, That was one of the first things, because he was the first person I ran to. And through that, he directed me to you people. And I started to develop a relationship with people here. That's why I'm back again. I see some of the people I started a relationship. See, I left a lot of feelings over there at that bonfire last year. You know what I mean? See, this is good for me. For the new member, please keep coming. All things can be revived. I too have been divorced in recovery. And I thought it was, oh, wow, I'm supposed to be a better guy now. Here I am divorced. I was just clean. I wasn't working no steps. I wasn't changing. Still, I know I have to change. I have to change a lot of different areas if I want to be a better person, which I truly want to be. So that takes practice, And I still don't do it to perfection. And the readings they tell me, I'm not gonna be perfect, no way. You know, I just have to listen online, learn, and keep practicing just to be a better person. Thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks for sharing.
Hi, I'm Susan Elliott. Thank you. I'm glad to be clean now. I never thought I would be able to say that. I never thought I'd be wanting to quit using. But since I've been clean, I have been able to have friends and know what a friend is. You know, everybody before was just out to use you or get what you can, you know, from whoever. You know, when I did get clean, I was able to look at a lot of things in my life that needed to be changed. There's still a lot that that I do need to change. But with my relationship now, I can have with my husband is better. It's actually on a speaking term, you know, and I like that. There's trust. We can actually go our separate ways and still be able to not wonder if he's out, you know, messing around on you. Because every relationship before, that's what happened. You know, so I learned to work through my own insecurities as to whether I could trust him. If he's going to do it, he's going to do it. I can't change it. You know, trust is not one of my better issues. But I've met a lot of people in the fellowship that I can trust. And I thank God that I had somebody to call when I needed it. And she showed me how to get here. And, you know, I'm grateful for this program. I'm really grateful for this. Relationship with my mother's not, it's good. It could be better. But I just have to work on that. With myself, I don't know. I'm okay with myself today. But I'm not always okay with myself. And you know, that's fine. That's me for the day. You know, if I'm in a depressed mood, no, I'm sorry, but that's just my mood today. And I can deal with that. Life is better clean. It's a lot better. And I can see where I was headed when I wasn't. You know, when I was using, I could really see that. And it wasn't doing nothing but getting me in a hole, digging myself out of holes was hard. But I am really grateful for this program. And this place is great. I never thought it would be like this. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Keep coming back.
Coming at it, man. We're
Hi, Larry.
truly, this is truly a gift in my life now. You are truly gifts in my life. We're all miracles today. And I truly think that, I truly believe that a relationship with myself and my higher power are the highest things in my life. If I have, because for me, it's the foundation that keeps me doing every day. That keeps me going every day. Because some days, you know, I wake up with an attitude. Some days, you know, because that's the attitude with myself. Because this bill ain't paid, and this ain't done, and that ain't done, and this ain't done, and I get a big complex of over the things that are, you know, that I should be doing, and now I'm confused. I don't understand, and I manipulate that, and through the thoughts, you know, it goes into actions. You know, and it's towards other people, you know, and how I react and how I act towards that, how I feel, when somebody says something I don't want to hear, when somebody says something I do want to hear. I've learned a lot of things, you know, and I'm in a relationship now, and you know, she does what she does, and I do what I do, and you know, and somehow it's a gift, and you know, and I'm really, I'm comfortable with it, you know, and I can relate to that today, just today. So I know that for the newcomers, a good message for newcomers would be reciprocity. And because the people that have been around here a little while, see, our experience and people that have been here a couple of days are paying the reciprocity of knowing, yeah, I did that. You know, I'm the one that didn't take directions. Yeah, I'm the one that did that. You know, I'm the one that went out there and did that stupid shit. You know, and felt that pain. You know, I'm the one. You know, I'm like the sacrificial lamb now for a newcomer. You know, I felt the pain. You know, but you want to entertain it? You know, go ahead. I already felt it. If you want to go out and test the waters, do whatever you want to do. If you still got one more run in you, go for it. You know? It ain't about drugs. This program hasn't got nothing to do with drugs. It's a common thing, yes, you know, that we use. But it hasn't got anything to do with this thing that's going on between our ears. You know, if I got acceptance within my ears, you know, I'm gonna have acceptance with everybody. You know, and I haven't found the perfect. You know, I'm not God. You know, I wish I was. You know, but accepting who I am today. You know, and letting something else into this right here, where I am right now, and how I got here. You know, and maybe, you know, making some kind of future. You know, but it seems like every time I look forward, you know, I always got to put these little things in there. You know, like I want a boat, and I want a car, and I want this, and I want that. I want $1 million house, you know, and I want a stereo system that'll, you know, you can listen to, the whole state can listen to it. You know, and all these things, you know, and I can have all these things if I choose to have them, but not in my time, not in my way. Most of the things that I have in my life today, I did, you know, in the back of my mind, I knew that I needed them in my life to be me, but they did not come in my time. So I bitched, I moaned, I groaned, I kicked, I did everything I could, and still didn't get it. You know? I tried to work the principles of this program. You know, I tried to instill religion into my life. I tried to get a psychologist and work them to the best of my ability. You know, I tried to do everything I could, you know, and I got a girlfriend, you know, I had a couple of girlfriends since I've been here, and I tried to work them to the best of my ability. You know? And all along is a very simple thing that says that all these things will never work, you know, so keep coming back. You know, and this experience is given to a newcomer, you know, free of choice because it was given to me. Very simple. Very simple. You know, it's about getting rid of the shit, you know, recognizing what the shit is, and you know, recognizing, calling it what it is. Because it's so simple. It's so easy in the opposite way to look at your defects. Because I can tell you about you so fast, it would make your eyes twirl. You know, well, you're this color, you're this age, oh yeah, you're this nationality, and you're driving a brand new car too, yeah. And you just pulled up with a 1976 Pinto that's got rust or, come on, you know, Freddie Flintstone, you know, brakes and stuff, you know, through the floorboard or whatever, right? This program is not, and relationships are not about, or anything about this program is about the material world. It's not about what's going on out here, really. It's not. Sorry, my spirit. That's a big relationship with my higher power and how I perceive it to be, because it's completely the opposite of what I used to think it was. I used to think, you know, that they want this from me. They want this from me. And I got to do this for you in order to get this from you. And all these different perceptions got altered. I started working the steps, and man, now I'm all vulnerable. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be. So it leaves a place for attitude. Right? Living between my own ears today is probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. That's a relationship with me. Accepting my flaws, accepting my defects, accepting that I am loving, worthy, and caring, and I do deserve this. You know, life is a gift. We experience a lot of things in life. But if I want to alter it, you know, I'm the best one to do it. We all are. So we're a bunch of sick puppies. We don't know how to live. You know, if we knew how to live so good, why the fuck would we be sitting in Narcotics Anonymous workshop? Right? I know about this. I know how to live real good. But I do know how to pay a bill today. I do know how to be responsible. And through that, I've got to get a little bit of self-esteem, a little bit of self-worth. I come a long way from, you know, prisons and stuff like that. And my personal uniqueness, because I'm the only one that's ever went down my road. You know, I'm the only one that's ever had my pain. Right. About unique myself right out of the program. About unique myself, you know, out of the program before I even had a taste of the program. It took me 2 years to even get a taste of the program. I was clean 2 years, didn't even get recovery, you know, starting some kind of sanity between my ears. After 2 years, I started getting some kind of twinkle. But it's not about an I thing today in any manner. Whether I'm out of a Narcotics Anonymous meeting or whether I'm in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, it's about a we thing. You know, it's about a human thing. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm a recovering addict named Diane.
Hi, Diane.
And like Howard said, you know, you think relationships in my mind used to automatically go he, she. And today that's not how it goes for me. When I first got into recovery, I was married, you know, and I hadn't lost that yet. And yeah, it was for me irrevocable too, because eventually I did. I got clean in my own and said, holy shit, you know. And he never used. I mean, he was a non-user, but he couldn't handle this one clean, you know. Gosh, had a mouth that she ever did, and an opinion that came out of it on a consistent basis, and a lot of people still feel that way about me. And that's okay today, you know. But I thought if I worked this program good enough, and practice these traditions good enough, I could control this thing, you know. And I almost controlled it to my son's grave. And because he was a destructive human being. And so they told me not to get into relationships when I first started coming. Don't make any major changes for a year. So I have used that in my recovery, that if I move, I don't make another change in my life majorly for a year. You know, if whatever. I just don't make more than one major change a year. You know, that's what they told me to do. I follow directions today. I don't usually judge this shit, but I can follow directions. And so 1 year was good to stay out of these personal relationships, and I left Texas and went back up to the UP, and a friend of mine said, well, why don't you come to Florida? And I said, I don't think so. Been there, done that, don't need to do that no more. And I went back to the UP. She said, what are you doing up there, communing with God? And I was like, yeah, something like that. And that's what I did. I spent a couple of years trying to get a relationship going with this God of my understanding or misunderstanding. And from that, I learned faith and trust. And I learned that no matter what, I didn't have to pick up today. I lost a lot of things. I heard people, you know, coming to the tails and they'd lost it all before they got here. I lost it all after I got here. here, I did leave terribly after I got here. I had family when I got here. I found a sponsor when I got here, and shortly thereafter, I lost all these things. My sponsor was killed by a drunk driver. That was a real hard one for me to accept. And in 18 months from the time that she died, a lot of other people in my life died. And it was a real hard time. And I learned I didn't have to pick up. Because I had a relationship with a God of my understanding, whatever the hell that is, and it changes from moment to moment. Okay? I got involved in service. You want to talk about relationships? Get involved at the area level. You'll find out what relationships are about. You learn how to practice these principles. That'll work for you for a while. You know? I have relationships today that, you know, are pretty totally insane. You know, I am a single parent. Sometimes I hate it. There are times I just hate being alone. I don't have pillows. I have books. Okay, queen size bed. I sleep in this much of it, and the rest of it is books, basic text. How and now, Men Are From Mars. That's a good one. I like that one. We keep breaking that one. But you know, I just Men Are From Mars, Men Are From Venus. It's all explained. A lot of acceptance came from it. But you know, and I can freak out. And then I go to the people that I have the relationships with. I have a relationship with my sponsor today. She's in Texas. This works really good, actually. I used to think that was not such a hot idea. It works real good for me today. You know, I have freedom today. Besides not using, I have freedom. I can be here. You know, I have a relationship with my children today. My son drove down here with me. 4 hours, for those of you who don't know, we did 4 hours at 25 miles an hour. This was a 6-hour trip. It took me 11. I was not a happy camper when I got here. I did not kill the child, you know, or myself or any young ducklings that I didn't drown, you know. And that again is because I have a relationship with a God of my bizarre understanding today. I have a treatment foster home. I get kids in my home that summer addicts. I had a couple of them here last year. One little gal that I brought, if you remember, the blonde girl that was here with me, found out because she was here, the message got in and she found out she was an addict. You know, and she's a hurting addict today because she's not very using again. She went to treatment. She calls me out and says, "What do I do?" And it's like, "I'll put you in contact with somebody." Doesn't live with me anymore. She's not in my community anymore, but I can plug her in because I've had, by the grace of God, this program. I've been able to travel around, okay, and pick up names and numbers of people from different places. And I have relationships with people that even though I can't even remember their names, but when I see them, I know who they are. I know I've seen them before. You know, and I have a relationship there. And it's not about sex, it's not about that type of intimacy. I have some real intimate relationships with people. I stayed out of that interpersonal shit for 4.5 years. I figured one was good, more was better. You know, it worked when I was using shit. So I stayed out for 4.5 years and I got into a relationship that was real healthy with a man in recovery. And it was real healthy for a real long time and then it got real sick. You know? And today it works for me. And I like that. And because I have this relationship with this man today, I can be here. Because he's working for me there. Now we went through the anger and the pain and the resentments and all of that good stuff that we do. And, you know. But the principles of this program say that I don't have to hate that person and I don't have to wipe them out of my life because I changed and he changed. You know. I've learned in this program that we can get through that. We can come to the other side without using. Both of us made it to the other side without using, you know, and we're able to help each other out. He needed money and I needed somebody to stay with my kids. Well, it's no good today, you know. Because I have children today that I could not bring here. You know. that I have one attached to this hip and I have one attached to this hip. Except the one that's attached to this hip hit the road yesterday. She ran. You know, she took off on Thursday. You know. And I had to report her, and maybe they'll pick her up and that's the relationship I've got there too. It's pleased, and it's a good one today. It's a positive one today, you know. And I don't know, I've been out of a relationship, the interpersonal type, for, 30 months, but he's counting, you know. Today I got things in my life, I've got people that I love, that I'm not necessarily in love with, but that I love today, and I love me, and I respect me enough today to say, this is not good for me. This is not healthy for me to do. I stayed away from the area meetings in my community, or my area, for a year, because it became real unhealthy for me to be there. And I had to go to a man and make amends, and in those amends say, and this is not the man that I had a relationship with, this is somebody at the end, and said, I was wrong to tell you that I would not attend meetings in this town, and I was wrong to tell you that I would not come to the area meetings, and I will be at the next area meeting, and if we can work on this, and that's what we need to do. That's what I learned here. That's what I learned here. But I learned that sometimes I have to back up and keep my mouth shut and keep my personality the hell out of there, because it's strong and obnoxious at times. And back it off, in order to work on that relationship. And I'm just real grateful that I could be here today. I've seen a lot of faces that I know from last year, and a lot of faces that I don't know. It was real hard because I tried, man. I tried really, really hard to get people from Wisconsin to come with me. But they're so damn wild for this. I'm not really a cheesehead. I've just been transplanted for true love. But true love is gone, and I'm still in Wisconsin, But anyway, they're so loyal to this Hartman's Creek they go to, I couldn't get anybody away from there. And it was like, I said to my son, I said, I'm just like having this little attack because now I'm going to go walk in there. I don't know anybody, And he said, well, you used to tell me when we moved all the time just to go in there and make friends. Go in there and make friends, Mom. And it was all right. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. This is not the enemy camp. These are people that are just like me. And a lot of them are going to be saying, oh my God, I'm really scared about walking in here. And maybe we'll say that out loud, and maybe we won't say that out loud, But I just keep doing it. I went to convention in Tennessee for Thanksgiving, and I will be here next year, God willing, in the Great Mirage, I assume they take my kids, But, because this, for me, NA has strengthened my relationship with myself, with the God of my understanding, with my children. With my father, I don't have a very good relationship, and he's dying. And I was really looking forward to coming here because I needed to get filled up so that I can make that trip to Florida and say, no matter what the shit is that we've been through and how I don't like what happened and I don't like what you did, I'm still here and I love you. Because life is really short, man, and that's all we got. And our speakers say that, no matter what. If you got odds with somebody, call them up and say, I love you. If you still want to hang on to it, that's fine, you hang on to it. But I can't afford to do that today. And the last time and I'll be there when I can get there, and I can't get there until the middle of June, so, that's when I'll go. And it was real important for me to be able to come here and continue to grow up, and that's what I learned in this fellowship. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. I love it. Does anyone else like to share? We got a couple of minutes.
Hi, my name's John.
Hey, John.
Oh, it's real nice to see Howard. It's like real special for me to be here since I was here last year, because I know that there was a whole lot of relationships developed last year, and I've been engaged for 3 or 4 days before I got here. And I remember the relationships, and I'd go to all these relationship workshops because it was a male-female thing in my mind, And when I first started coming around here, my addiction took me to institutions, prisons. And when I first started coming around here and people talked about the men thing, I was looking at me all the time because I didn't know how to have a relationship with anybody. And every time I heard a woman share at a meeting, I related to what the pain she was going through because I used to do that to women, So when I used my first month in this program over a woman because I didn't want to deal with the pain, that suggestion about staying out of relationships kind of hit home. And I said, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should finally get humble and listen to some of these people. So I did that, and I thought, well, this is real hard, And there's a few people here for the first time that were the same people that would hold me and pat me on the back and say, it's all right, John, it'll all be worthwhile staying in this relationship. And it definitely was. I learned a relationship with me. I finally put a God in my life and my understanding. And funny enough, I have a sponsor who's my best friend. And I know about me. I'm okay with me today. I'm okay with John. So many other relationships came because of me staying out of a male-female relationship. I never ever thought I'd ever go back to a prison. I said I'm clean. I'll never have to do that anymore. I love to go back and do H&I work. I have a relationship with some inmates who I can see the light in their eyes today because I've been there and I've shown them a way out. See, when I came to this fellowship, I didn't know what addiction was. I didn't know that it was, I thought it was just me, and I was scared of society, and today I'm not. Today I fit in. Today this is a family that I really love. They taught me how to live again. They taught me how to have a relationship with the world. And I'm in a relationship now. And I have all these feelings, and they're good feelings. And the biggest thing that I learned in this relationship is honesty. It's the first clean relationship I've ever been in my life. And all I know is that all I did was take all the things that I did in relationships that were terrible, and I swear to God I would never do them again. I don't ever want to hurt anybody anymore. I don't want to put any of those women through the terrible relationships that I put them through. Granted, it was a give and take situation, but I had to put a whole lot of change. And I'm real thankful for this program because this program taught me how to live together. I got honest in the man, and I had to sit with them a lot. I had to tell them, teach them, just be friends with them. So that was real hard for a convict to tell someone. I heard that line before, But today I have some that are real good friends of mine, because see, I know that I'm a con artist, but I can't bullshit nobody around here because we're all the same. And what I did was I searched out women that were in relationships, male-female relationships, and I said, well, she's safe. Because she has a man, so I'll get together with her, and then maybe I can learn to have relationships with people where I'm not lusting, where I'm not burning up my kids. And I work on me, and the women around this program make sure I work on me, and around me all the time, and I love it, I love the love in this thing, in this fellowship, for a long time I didn't feel a part of it, until I got a part of it. Life is just real, and all I do is share my strengths, hopes, and experiences, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. A year was probably not long enough. I remember when I stayed a year out of a relationship, and in my mind was saying, okay, I'm ready, where are you? But I was scared. I was real scared. I was real scared to be let down. To ask someone out and have them say no. And I had to go through some of that. And I noticed in this year of, that I call my, sexual sobriety, where every woman that I thought I was attracted to, I watched all the sicknesses in her. And I realized that everyone that I picked was no good for me, and this wasn't a once a week thing, this was an everyday thing for months and months, and I had to say, well, if this higher power of mine can keep me clean, then he can give me anything I want. And he has. He's given me a real good relationship. And it's something I didn't chase after, something that just happened. It's just like all the relationships that I developed here last year. This is like a family reunion to me this year. It's like I really enjoy this. I think, if I could do this for 10 years, I'll be happy. I'm really happy to come here once a year. I'm in love with this place. And, I see people that live in my hometown, and I see them here, and I don't even see them in meetings, but they're in different areas. It's funny, and it's really nice. But I had to break a lot of walls down for me, as far as relationships, and I had to look at me, and I had to, I remember, I'm looking back at the last year, and I'm thinking, wow, here I am sharing with all these people about all the things that I've done, and I was the guy who didn't even want a hug when I first come around. And now it's like when I go up north and spend some time by myself or with some people up north and can get away and I'm okay not to get a few meetings, that's what I miss most is hugs. I be around people and I have relationships with people out of the fellowship now. We have real nice relationships and they don't use and everything's okay, but they don't give hugs, and I can't wait to get to a meeting to get a hug. And that's part of the relationships that I have. I need hugs, I need affection. I'm not that hard guy that I always thought I was, that the drugs told me I could be, and I don't have to use if this relationship falls apart. I can come back here and hug. I have a relationship with my parents that is different than anything I've had in the last 37 years, My dad can still yell and be miserable the same way he was when I was using, and I don't have to, I can tell him, hey Dad, I really love you. You don't have to go through all this pain, because it ain't about nothing. All this you're yelling about, it's not solving nothing. And I love you if it makes you feel better. And if it makes you feel better, yell at me, because I understand why you're yelling. Where I didn't before, and I can understand my mom going through a bunch of changes because he uses it, and she's living with a using addict. And I can relate to that because I was the using addict she had to live with before, that she raised up. And today my life is real good. If it wasn't for these people, I wouldn't have had a chance. I didn't have a chance out there until I walked through these doors. This is real good for me. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I'm an addict. My name is Skip.
Hi, Skip.
Run out of time. Can we close this meeting with a group hug? It's ready for. Also, lunch is being served.
Oh, yeah.
I knew. We gotta hug first.